So I kept hearing "Don't Suffer in Silence" today, and it was when I was watching through some videos, but it made me think about it and kind of dive deeper into the "Don't Suffer in Silence." And I think because that's typically what happens, right? We have emotions and we have feelings, and for whatever reason, we're taught to just take those emotions and feelings and just hide them somewhere deep inside. Whether it was because, like, for me, I think I was always taught like someone else always had it worse, so my feelings were not important. So I never really felt emotions. If there was something happen or done, it was like, oh, but it's probably so much worse for them, so what can I do to make it better for them? Or what can I, that was a lot of it. Someone hurt me, it was always, well, yeah, but it hurt them to hurt me. So I need to make sure they're okay. I know, delusional, but those were the thoughts and feelings that I have, and those were the things I was taught for a long time, was to ignore and act like I had no emotions, act like, my feelings were not important. And I started on a healing journey and I started identifying all that, but I realized as I'm sitting here today thinking about it, that you have to identify where the pain is. You have to identify that there's pain, and if you're silently ignoring that there's pain, you're never going to fix it. You're never going to change where that pain's coming from. You're never going to feel any different because that pain is so stuck there. And that's why it's important to identify where the pain is, to identify where those thoughts and feelings are, so you can pull them out, work them out, and get rid of them. And as I'm sitting here thinking about it, that's kind of what this book was, which is The Words That Transform Me. This was my poetry book, and that's what I did, was I dove into the pain. I first identified who I am, and then I did chapter 2 is my diving into pain, where I took like how apologies went, because there's an apology one. There's the protector, escaping, trapped. I think there's one called like behind the door, because that's what it felt like for me. A lot of the pain that I felt was the image wasn't what was matched with my feelings. My intuition was made to believe that it was a lie, and I wasn't feeling what I was feeling because of the lies and manipulation around me. So those were a lot of the pain that I had to identify in order for me to move on and start to really trust my intuition again, in order for me to really know who I was by going through the pain. And I think that that's important for anybody else going through it. We can't suffer in silence, because when you're suffering in silence, you're not identifying where the pain is. And if we're not identifying where the pain is, we can't fix it. And I know it's hard sometimes because we don't want to hurt other people. We don't want, especially a lot of us that are hurting, the people that are around us are ones that are hurting too, or they take too much. Because I know that's the same for my kids sometimes. They don't want to tell me because I got a lot going on and they got a lot going on. And so who talks? But I think it's important to still know that you can confide in those people. You can still let them know in order to pull out the pain, because you can't suffer in silence. Because when you are silent, you're suffering. When you're pulling out the pain, when you're identifying the pain, you're not suffering anymore. It's not always a good thing. It's not that it doesn't hurt, because it does. Going through those emotions, going through those things still hurt. But you're hurting to get a more positive outcome. You're hurting so you don't have to continue to suffer with it. Because that's what I think happens, right? We have these things that happen to us and we store them, and we sometimes dwell over them and wait until they pop up again. But when we're dealing with them, when we're coping with them, when we're identifying with them, when we're diving into the pain, it freaking hurts like crazy. So don't let anybody tell you it doesn't. But once you've done it, you kind of move on and move from it. And I'm sitting here as I'm thinking about it, because I'm like, I gotta go back through some of these poems. because once I identified some of the stuff and I got it out in a poem, I got it out in the emotion. I dove through it. I talked about it. Because a lot of the times when I was doing the poetry book, I was thinking of the poem. I was thinking of like the image versus what things were behind closed doors that I ignored for so long because I followed the image and not these thoughts or these feelings that were happening because they weren't matching each other. And I dove into that. I identified what that was. I identified what that meant to me. And then I didn't give it as much thoughts anymore. It's not until like now thinking about it, I'm like, I dove through a lot of stuff and I did disconnect the pain because I'm like, I think it's still stored there. But no, I think I pulled it out. I went over, I had a car accident when I was like 4 and I still think about it a little bit. But I like sat there and I dove through the car accident. I dove through what happened, what possibly happened, because no one really talked about it and how no one talking about it affected everybody and how it affected my brother and how his reaction then affected me because we couldn't talk about it because it hurt him because he was driving the car at like 4 years old. It was an accident, but the focus was on him and not on me. And then he didn't get to grieve his because he didn't get to really explore what happened for him or how it affected him. We all just had these thoughts about it. My dad, who found me, who was supposed to be watching us while he was getting ready, I think he was getting ready for work, and we were out in the car, then he had emotions with it. Oh my God, it was on my watch. And then that was never talked about again because we don't want to hurt Dad's feelings. And I was able to like dive through all of it, not meaning to rehash it here, but that's the purpose, is you sitting and you rehashing it in your head to get it out. Whether you put it in a book, whether you write it, whether you draw a picture, whatever it is, whatever art is for you, you get it out. And I think even if that's, even if you're like a sports person and you want to put it on, it's so crazy how I'm seeing it, like put it on a soccer ball or a baseball and then just freaking hit it or kick it to get those feelings and those emotions out. Could you imagine? I don't know why this is in my head, so I don't know if someone needs to hear it, but could you imagine putting all those like emotions and feelings on a soccer ball and then just keep kicking it and you're writing it in like a dry erase? So as you kick the ball, it just gets worn and worn out. So it's like that stuff is now gone. You no longer have to hold on to it because you released it through playing the sports that you love. I think that would be the same like on football or baseball or anything. That's kind of interesting. But I'm guessing some of that's coming because some people are more on the athletic side than the creative side. And you can do it on either way. Just getting those emotions out so you're not suffering in silence. You're releasing them. Whether you're talking loud when no one's around, or you're talking loud to someone who you trust, who you confide to, a therapist, whatever it is that you need, so you release it and you stop suffering in silence. Because so many times we keep it, we hold it in because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to upset anybody if people knew, or whatever those emotions are, and we're slowly suffering. We got to release it. We can't suffer in silence anymore. We got to get that stuff out. All right. Just my thought. Sending love, everybody.